there, everyone. Dr. Lisa Faast here, and I hope you've got your coffee or your drink of choice because I have got one of my most favorite people to discuss pharmacy purchasing strategies with, and that is Craig from RX Cherry Pick. And his show, we've done some episodes before. Those are probably always our most popular. People say like those are the most eye-opening because Craig is very good at pulling back the curtain and talking about like what happens behind the scenes in the industry and whatnot, the games, the shenanigans, you will, that some other players play. So before we get into just coffee talk, and that's really what this is going to be in, Craig and I are just going to be talking about purchasing strategies, all the changes coming up in January, the ways your other wholesaler might be tricking you. And we're just going to chat and just hopefully share some information that is practical and applicable to you as a pharmacy owner so that you can save money, have better cash flow, and actually enjoy owning your pharmacy again. So really quick, Craig, just give an introduction of yourself, of RX Cherry Pick, just in case they don't know who you are. And then we'll get to chatting.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I'm going to say it's been a little bit since you and I have chatted. October of 2023.
Well, that now, not since we've chatted, since we had a podcast. You and I
Yes.
chat frequently.
Oh no. Yeah,
but
that's
since
true.
we had a podcast, yes, and a lot has changed since October 2023.
Absolutely. So RX Cherry Pick really is think of it as a financial advisor at the point of purchasing. And there are a number of factors that need to be brought into play. Again, we believe in advocating 100% for the independent pharmacy. So, if you have a problem with a vendor that we work with, if you have any sort of problems or questions, really either call Lisa or call us. And again, I would say it's a financial advocacy group, which is odd to say for pharmacies, but it really does come down to it. And because it's 15 years ago, purchasing wasn't important. And I would argue now, your patients were the most important thing. I would argue now that your financial decision at the point of purchasing is the most important. And the only reason why I say it is the most important is if you don't stay in business, you're not taking your patients have to go somewhere else. And God forbid they have to go to one of the mega chains, which don't care. They're just
Yep.
punching a clock.
I love the way you framed that, and I will 1000% back you up. You cannot have a successful, profitable pharmacy that doesn't keep you up at night unless you make good decisions on where you purchase your drugs. Because if you follow the old habit, I like to say the old way of doing pharmacy, like you mentioned, 15 years ago, it didn't really matter. Prices were all the same, kind of terms were all the same. Like it didn't really matter. If you keep operating like that, it is a for sure way to die a slow, painful death as a pharmacy owner, both as your business and your personal health, because you will stay up all night worrying about cash flow and paying your bills and all the things that happen with that. And that's because there is now such a differentiation in our market. Because profit margins are super thin, if not negative, right? And unfortunately, in some cases. And so there isn't the wiggle room anymore. Cash flow is the thing that kills pharmacies. And to your point, the reason why RX Cherry Pick is a financial tool, if you will, is because it actually is one of the things where you can make an active decision and an active choice to improve your cash flow. You are never going to get help on your cash flow from the major wholesalers. It's just not going to happen. Honestly, if they wanted to save pharmacy, all the big wholesalers would have to do is just switch everything over to 30-day payment terms, and boom, like you literally save independent pharmacy overnight. So the fact that they haven't done that just goes to show that they really don't care. Unfortunately.
Well, it's funny that you bring up, the large wholesalers is one of the common, and I'm just going to use the word gripe because I hear this all the time. It's just a gripe, and they'll sit there and say, why can't they be more transparent? Well, I'm going to give you a dose of reality. Is The big three control 99.5% of $1 trillion market. Everybody, they treat their clients like mushrooms. You're in the dark and you're fed poop. It is a very good financial model for them.
Yeah,
Keep
no,
being
there's no
independent.
incentive to treat us better. That's what I'm saying. Like if it was about caring for their customers and ensuring their customers
Yep,
continued existence,
yep,
they would make different decisions, but it's not. They're
yep,
playing a different game.
yep,
And that's another reason why obviously I support a ton of secondaries because
yes,
they're the interest more aligned with the pharmacy owner, right? Like the
yes,
interest aligned. And
yes,
so to your point, I'd love for you to talk about a little bit of some of the games that the bigger wholesalers play.
yes.
We were just talking about before we, hit record that the crazy deals that people say. They say, "Oh, I get whack -6 or I get whack -8." And if you understand drug purchasing, then you understand that there's no way those numbers are real, right? Like there's you can't buy enough generics to kind of offset those whack prices. So what is it that they're doing? What have you seen? Because you evaluate a ton of invoices, you evaluate a ton of agreements and deals. So how is it that they're getting these whack minus big numbers? What is actually happening?
Well, and that's a great question because and this is very difficult. It's really hidden. When you hear someone anything that's a really above whack -4.25, that should indicate a red flag. And you may be getting it, you may be seeing it on invoice. Now, this is a critical point. What changed probably right around the last time we did a podcast was there was the people were being invoiced at whack minus, let's just say 6. But the -6 is on the invoice price. Well, that means that the wholesaler can set that brand name price at any number they want. So if you compared that price against whack, you might be getting a 6%, but compared to whack, you're at +2. Okay. So you have to be very careful. Now we have seen incidences out there where people are being told and they're seeing invoices. My brother and I, Lisa knows my brother very well. We're Irish Norwegian, so we're bred just to wake up in the morning and look for a fight. Is we couldn't figure out how a pharmacy wasn't making money because on invoice we were seeing 6%. Well, my brother John is an expert at data research. And it was the elephant standing in the room. He started to notice that there was a discrepancy between whack and what they said invoice was. And no one, except for you, me, and my brother, and whoever's going to watch this, is aware of this. So if people are telling you, well, you have to be at, you can get whack -8. There's another issue that's at play here too, is they're playing on pharmacists have long memories and they go back. So if you went back, say 5 years ago, and somebody said, well, I'm getting whack -5, that would be on 80% of your catalog. All right. Whack -8 is every catalog out there is a blended catalog. So you might see whack -8. It's all tiered. So let's just say it's 8, and then your next tier is 5, and then your next tier is 3, then 0, then plus. It's all over the place. So you're not getting whack on every single one of your brands. You're only getting whack on about 25% of your brands. And of that 25% of the brands you order, specific NDCs, you might qualify, and the big underlined, bold, in red letters are qualify for whack -8. And if it's on invoice, you're probably overpaying for it anyways.
Yeah, I like to akin the financial and banking principles of the major wholesalers as casinos, the house always wins, right? Like
Always.
they know what they're doing. And to your point, like my cutoff is whack minus 4.5. Like if it's more than 4.5, like okay, that's a red flag. So I agree with that. On the GCR side, I've talked to just very recently, pharmacy owners that have GCRs 19, 22%. Like that's virtually impossible to attain these days. Like unless you're managing your book of business, like micromanaging. So what I consider a good deal for a primary is a GCR of 6% and a whack of minus 4.5. Like to me, that's a good deal in the sense of you're going to still have a lot of flexibility because as we're seeing as January rolls around, like this industry never stops changing, right? I always say it's never a dull day in pharmacy. And so to me, I think the biggest weapon that pharmacy owners can hold on to is flexibility. And
Yes.
you need the options to not have to buy 100% from your primary. Like that is just a way to die. First of all, your primary doesn't even carry all the products that you need. They don't carry all the NDCs. They don't carry all the niche products. Their payment terms aren't ideal in any way, shape, or form. They overcharge you. So not only are you losing profits, but you're losing cash flow. And so flexibility to me is probably the number one tool. So when you have a primary vendor agreement, it's not like I'm against primary vendor agreements. My pharmacies use them, but to have that GCR of 6% as opposed to 15, 19, 22 that I've seen recently, that it allows you flexibility. It allows you the ability to purchase outside other things because there are some things that only primary vendors like carry. Some of the bigger brands or the harder to find, triflodipine, eye drops, whatever. Like there's a reason to have those, but they should just be like one piece of the pie of your purchasing
Yeah.
strategy, not 100% of that. And so,
Yeah.
the changes that are coming up in January, those of you that, might have your head in the sand, which I totally understand, you're busy. The drug negotiation pricing, the Medicare negotiation pricing, the whole, MFT process of buying and paying full price and eventually maybe getting that credit back 8 weeks later. It's almost like a recap of the DIR fee apocalypse where we as independent pharmacy owners are footing the cash flow. We're having to cover the float, if you will, for all these Medicare patients. The responsibility totally falls to us as independent pharmacy owners, where you pay $1,000 for a drug that they were only reimbursed $400 because they negotiated with Trump. It's like, well, fantastic. And then it takes you 8 weeks or whatever to get that credit back. Guess what? In the meantime, you're carrying that $700 float for month and week after week. And so you have got to, I think, adjust your entire strategy. That's why I'm so glad you opened up with like, if you're not adjusting and managing your purchase strategy, you're not going to get through that, right? Like you're absolutely going to fall flat on your face because you don't have the cash flow. And changing over to products like RX Cherry Pick, which is one of the things I talk about you guys all the time, is you like it's almost instant, not quite 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but almost instantly you fix pharmacy's cash flow problems. Like
Yeah.
it's gone.
Well, if you're paying daily, it is instant.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So again, getting to the GCR. The first of all, a natural GCR. So if you have your brand names that you're paying a fair price for, right, is going to be somewhere. It's starting to tip down below 8%. Okay, so if you were to send everything 100% and said, I want maximum credit, you can't get to a 12%. 12% is impossible to get to.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't do it. Now, having said that, when you talk about flexibility in RX Cherry Pick means you load your whole order in. All right. RX Cherry Pick has several vendors that have brands invoiced at 45 days daily ACH. So you don't have to come up with a big nut to pay this off. So that means on day 45, you only pay for day one. 45 days is critical because most reimbursements fall between 14 and 16 days. Well, at 45 days on a brand and you order that brand regularly, you might be getting 3, maybe 4 reimbursements before you start with day one. Then you have the cash flow. And the reason why I know you and I harp on cash flow, but the reality is now short-term loans, bank line of credit or whatever, the cost of that's going up. You're pretty much going to be paying, if you got a nice bank, 8%,
Yeah, if you're
up to
lucky.
11%. If you tap into that money, I don't care that you're getting whack -6. You're so deep into whack plus territory. And if you think, and then it's on invoice, so you tack on more onto that thing, and you can't figure out why you make money. The, you know, and here's the other thing. RX Cherry Pick, when you talk about flexibility, you load your order in. Now you start making financial decisions. You start going, you know what? I think I am losing, and a true whack -3 is 11 percentage points better than what you thought you were getting whack -6. I know it sounds confusing. It's deliberately meant to be confusing. So, the notion of sticking with whack and then I'm going to do that, because if you're at a, you can get to a GCR with specific wholesalers, but really only on RX Cherry Pick, because you can move a brand away.
Yes.
And you don't
Yep.
have to move very many away, because brands on average are 60 times more expensive than a generic drug. So,
Yep.
you have to deal with some realities of I know you want independent pharmacies want to drink the Kool-Aid. It's saying I'm getting whack -6. Then you shouldn't be in any financial trouble whatsoever.
Yeah,
Period.
absolutely. If it was working as the math has to math. Uh,
Yes.
the other, a lot of strategy that I've been talking about, one that I employ in my pharmacy, and I know lots of others, are just decreasing the amount of brands that we're dispensing. And
Yeah.
so I've seen a lot of owners kind of fall into this trap of, I've decreased a bunch of brands, so I'm hardly purchasing the brands. So now my generics usage has gone way up. So I'm maximizing my rebate. They get these rebate checks. And when I show them the pricing, when you have transparent net pricing like you do with RX Cherry Pick, and you even post rebate, it's like you're still leaving tens of the thousands of dollars of profit on the table because you're overpaying for generics. Even if you're maximizing rebates from the big wholesalers, they are still over, and people just don't believe it. Like, they don't believe it. It's like, and I when I finally work with them and I finally get them to, like, look at the pricing here, go create an account, look at the pricing here, even post rebate, you are overpaying for generics. And it's usually, even post rebate, it can still be as high as 2 or 3 times. So, if you had a $50 bottle, you get a big chunk of a rebate, you get a $40 rebate back, and that bottle costs 10. If you would have just bought it through the net pricing, transparent pricing, where you're not playing the rebate game, you would have paid $5 for that bottle.
Yes.
And so it's like you're still
And gotten
overpaying.
60 days. And gotten
Yeah,
60
yeah. And
days.
not, and then that's where the wholesalers, when you play the rebate game, what you're doing is playing a monopoly banking game where you don't even quite understand all the rules, because it's ridiculous. None of us in our personal life at all would go to the grocery store and say, I'm going to pay $10 for a gallon of milk. Would you be so kind, in a month or 2 or 6 months, or, whenever you feel like it, send me back the extra $8 that I overpaid? Like, none of us would. So why do we do that with our drugs? Why do we overpay these massive amounts and then let the wholesaler use our money? Because we all know they're making money.
They understand cash flow.
Yeah, they understand it. And then, eventually we get these rebates back, but we're never able to really understand how that came down to the drug. Like, we never know how much we actually paid for that gallon of milk. And it's just preposterous that whole smoke and mirrors and lack of transparency. It's at this point in my life, like, I am just like, just get me the place that's like, I know at least what I'm paying for my milk. It's like, I know what I'm paying for my drug. This bottle of drug costs $20. And that's because that's what Craig charged me, on my invoice. And it just, it's crazy, this game that we play. But to the point, back to my a lot of pharmacies think, oh, now I'm winning the rebate game because I've stopped dispensing all these brands. I'm
Yep.
winning the rebate game. But if you actually just looked at the numbers, the math, you would understand that you're still losing the net profit game.
Yes.
And so you get addicted to those big rebate checks, but you forget to really look at what's the biggest impact to your bottom line, your net profit, what you as a pharmacy owner, get to make and take home for your troubles of being a pharmacy owner.
Well, and here's the thing is and I'm glad you used the term addiction, because if you don't have cash flow and you're always, how many pharmacists out there are checking their bank account multiple times a day to see if a, reimbursement check has come in, that kind of, and they're living that kind of life. Once you shift over to the cash flow model, you don't have to do that. But under the old model, you're addicted, and this is where the wholesalers are geniuses, because it's very Pavlovian, is that they don't send you the check exactly on a date. You don't know the exact amount. You don't know anything, but you sit there anxiously sitting there going, has it come in? Has it come in? Has it come in? I will be out of business if I don't get that rebate check. Well, you should change the sentences. Because I'm getting this big rebate check, I am going out of business.
Yep, absolutely.
And
That
these are
rebate
just
check
harsh
means you
realities.
overpaid. It's just kind of the concept with taxes. I think people who are pharmacy owners tend to be smarter than the average bear. We all know when you get a big refund when you file your taxes, that means you overpaid the government and you let them keep your money. When
Yeah.
you get a big rebate from your wholesaler, it's the
Yeah.
exact same story. That means you overpaid on your drugs and they got to keep your money instead of you. While you were pining and worrying about payroll and rent and all those kinds of things, they just had a surplus of money over in their bank account and they
Yeah.
were very happy to keep it. And so you shouldn't be excited to get a big rebate
Yeah.
because that means you've overpaid and you let the wholesaler keep it.
Well, and rebate money is highly profitable to these large companies, because they have learned, because it's a rebate, technically under the tax codes, it's not their money. So they don't have to pay taxes on it, because they say this is money held that is in lieu of payment, even though they're never going to pay it. Some of these big ones have 10 billion in cash,
Yep.
tax free.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know it's
they're smart.
they are. That's what they're banks. The wholesalers are banks. It is a financial strategy of how they create profits in their world. It is
Yeah,
not just buying and reselling. That is not how they win. They
yeah,
win through these financial strategies. And us as pharmacy owners, my big message to you as a pharmacy owner, if you're a pharmacy owner and you're listening to this, is we have to operate our pharmacies differently nowadays because of the way the life that we are. You can't operate how we alluded to 5, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where it didn't matter where you buy. We can't operate without, training our employees and having multiple revenue streams and all these different things that, I like to teach pharmacy owners. It's the new operation model. If you pick up any of those bad habits from your past, it's just we're playing a different game. It's yes, it's still called independent pharmacy, but honestly, it's a completely different game nowadays than it was even a very short time ago. And that's because of DIR fees, lower reimbursements, bad purchasing, changes on the purchasing side. It's a whole bunch of things that came together that really it's a different business. It is absolutely a different business than it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. So you have to change the way you operate in order to be. Now, you can definitely still be successful, right? Like I am blessed to be able to work with some of the most successful pharmacy owners, and they are making lots of money because they got this concept years ago. And they
yes.
and they continually change and they continually update their behavior. And if you haven't done that in the last year or two, chances are you probably did a little bit, because if you survived the DIRP apocalypse, you probably had to do something, or you got by the skin of your teeth, or maybe you survived on GLP-1s. Nothing wrong with that. But you need to change the foundation of your business to operate differently. And that's one of the reasons why I love Rx Cherry Pick. If you've never talked to Craig and have a one-on-one call, get an estimate of what that impact to cash flow will be, you call him up. I'll post his phone number for you. You can say it, Craig, but he'll do the simple math for you and tell you basically how much cash flow he can improve. And what I mean by cash flow is a lot of pharmacy owners don't really understand cash flow. That's okay. They didn't teach it in pharmacy school. What I really mean by cash flow is money you have in your bank account that you can actually spend on bills or withdraw to, pay yourself. And so that's what I mean by cash flow. If you want to know how much money you can get in your bank by switching to RX Cherry Pick, switching your purchasing strategy up to where you're not buying everything from your primary vendor. That doesn't mean you have to 100% stop. Some of you do some unique meds that, you still need to have that. Absolutely. It's not black and white. It's gray, right? It's a blend. It's a purchasing strategy. It's a blend of how you do things and how everybody does it. It's unique to every pharmacy because we all have different demographics, different specialties, different doctors, all those kinds of things. But call Craig up, have a simple conversation with him. He'll ask you very simple questions. You are not going to have to bring your financials or have your accountant on the line. And he'll tell you how much money you will have in the bank after a couple of weeks. And you'll probably have your mind blown.
let's give him a little math problem. So per $100,000 in purchasing, all right? On the cash flow side, per $100,000 in purchasing is probably going to result in about $150,000 in cash flow quickly. So if you're on daily, you start collecting that cash flow. Now, as far as savings go, I would say per $100,000, you're probably looking at around $1,000 to $3,000 a week in straight up savings, which is free capital. You can do anything.
I usually say 10,000 a month. Which is right in line with those. That's what I've seen. That's what I've seen in my pharmacies. It's about $10,000 a month in additional profit because you're actually paying lower prices. And then to your point of cash flow, it's money you have in the bank because the wholesaler's not holding on to it. They're not making you pay early. And so cash flow is all about timing. Cash flow is not profit. That's one of my main tenets that I teach. But you'll get increased profits because you're actually paying lower prices. And you'll also get the cash flow impact, which means money that is sitting in your account that you can do something else with it, whether that is pay for your kids' college, give your people a raise, pay yourself, whatever you want to do. But it's money in your account that you now have access to because otherwise the wholesaler was holding it. You didn't have access to it. And so it's the same type of concepts. You'll get both. You'll get better profit and you'll get better cash flow. And it happens very, very quickly.
And what a pharmacist needs to understand is what they are very confused on. And this is almost across the board is they confuse liquidity with cash flow. They go, well, I pay my bills. That's liquidity. And if you're borrowing money to pay your bills, you are in negative cash flow.
Yeah.
That's an important thing.
No, you're absolutely right. At 100%. I want every pharmacy owner to be paying themselves lucratively. My whole goal is to help pharmacy owners create continuously profitable pharmacies that aren't chaotic to run, so you set up systems, you set up processes, you set up new purchasing habits, all the things that it takes to have your pharmacy be throwing cash off that you can withdraw. You have enough cash flow that there's still enough in the bank. You can pay yourself. Unfortunately, I talk to still so many pharmacy owners that aren't paying themselves or they're paying themselves a very meager amount. And they have this mythology that, well, I'll make it all back when I sell. When I sell, I'll make it all back. And man, I'm telling you right now, at least right now, it is not a seller's market by any means. I have several pharmacy owners that are looking to sell for some very legitimate reasons, not necessarily because their business is bad. And
if you're not profitable, if you're buying a pharmacy, why would I buy you today when I know you're going to be cheaper tomorrow?
Yep, exactly. Okay? And so it is a tough market. So
it's tough.
My encouraging final words to you all is call up Craig, just have a simple conversation. He's fun to talk to, probably less than 15 minutes, and it could change your life. I kid you not. Every person that I think has come to you, Craig, they always call me back and say, I wish I would have done this sooner. I wish you told me about this a year ago and I waited and I was just busy and I got distracted and I wish I would have done it a year. Like every single person, there's not a single person that has ever been, gosh, I wish I would have waited to make that change. Never happened. So give Craig a call. They don't have a fancy website. I always say they had like the ugliest website on the planet.
You've made it famous.
Yeah, they don't have a fancy website. They don't have fancy salespeople. It is literally Craig or John that you will talk to, most likely Craig. And it's simple. It really is simple. Just pick up the phone. You can send him an email if you want. But just he'll need some really basic numbers. You know, how much do you dispense? How much are you purchasing? Like some of those really basic numbers that you probably know off the top of your head. And he can give you some estimates on additional profit and additional cash flow that you'll have in the bank. So thanks for chatting with me and recording another session, Craig. We shouldn't wait 2 years to make it happen again. And those of you that are coming to the Pharmacy Profit Summit in March, man, just 3.5 months away, you will see Craig there, RX Cherry Pick. He'll be walking around probably in the loudest, most colorful shirt that we can probably find for him. And you'll meet a lot of his customers there because, you know, the people in my world, especially our members, they've been drilled into them about RX Cherry Pick, and many of them are using Craig. So you'll get lots of feedback from customers and hear how literally they've changed their lives. Like, I mean, you can go, if you're stressing about money right now, like you can easily not be stressing about money within just a few short weeks. So it really is life-changing. So,
well, and the way you can tell why you should call us is if you're having a hard time sleeping, then you need to pick up the phone and call me.
yep.
You know, or call you, you'll get in touch with me, but we want to make it so that those pharmacists are sleeping well. Absolutely. And they're not crabby with their spouse.
No, absolutely not. You're right. So yeah, I want pharmacy. You should love it. Like I mean, I obviously still have my passion for it. Like you should love it. And the most usually why people lose their love is because they're stressed about cash flow. And yes. It kills me because it's fixable, right? You can't control everything in the cash flow equation, but you can control a lot. And you can control it enough that you basically eliminate your cash flow problem. Just listen to me, people.
Yes.
Yes. Do what I say. You'll have
listen to Lisa.
Life. Listen to me.
Go to Badass University.
Yes. All righty, Craig. I will let you go. And if you have any questions, you're watching this video, post them below whatever channel you're watching this on. I will definitely answer your questions. I keep up on those all the time. Yes, it is me answering. And as much as my lovely team is out there doing a bunch of things, I tend to answer all those questions. And I can easily put you in touch with Craig, but I'll put his information below too. So thank you so much, Craig. And I will see you in person in March in Dallas.
Very good. We love you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.